All right, I'm going to talk about Oregon quarterback Dillon Gabriel, Ohio State quarterback Will Howard. Talk about keys for success for each quarterback. We got 4 or 5 keys that we're going to talk about. Then we have a clip of film from each quarterback that demonstrates what they need to do repeatedly. I think the most important key, we'll show that at the end of the video. But I want to talk about each quarterback, do a big quarterback preview. But also let's talk about the defenses. So we're going to talk about Ohio State's defense first, maybe preview them real quick, then talk about Dillon Gabriel and what he needs to do against this defense in round 2 of their matchup, and then talk about Oregon's defense, then we'll talk about Will Howard and his main keys, then we'll look at the film. So let's talk about Ohio State's defense first. So they've only given up more than 17 points this season one time, and that was against, obviously, Oregon when they gave up 32 in that loss. But they are the number 1 defense in the Big Ten in points per game, only 10.9 points per game, which probably puts them number 1 in the nation, or at least at the very top in those in that stat. Number 1 in the Big Ten in yards given up per game. Number 1 in the Big Ten in passing yards given up per game, only 144. And number 2 in the Big Ten in sacks. So very good defense that has had a lot of success this season, with the exception of Oregon. So when they played Oregon in the first round, let's talk about what they did differently, because there's one thing that they did differently compared to the other games in the Big Ten. So they blitzed 36% of Dillon Gabriel's dropbacks, and they had 0 sacks. That's the least amount of blitzing they did in any Big Ten game. Most Big Ten games on quarterback dropbacks, on passing downs, they were blitzing 50% of the time. So a very aggressive defense, a defense that wants to get after the quarterback, but they didn't have much success against Oregon. There were a few reasons why, and we're going to get into that here in a second. But my biggest question is, do they decide to bring more? Because they had 0 sacks. They only blitzed 36% of the time. So will they decide to bring more? What are they going to do differently? I'm sure they're game planning and scheming something differently, but will they decide to bring more? Do they defend differently in the back 7? What kind of schemes do they throw at Oregon? So they will do something. They'll change and make some type of modification. It just determines what that change will be, and also like how much will they change. Maybe they just say, hey, let's just play better. Dillon Gabriel made some really, really good throws. Let's make him make those throws again. So that's the Ohio State defense, one of the best defenses in the nation. What will they change differently? Or will they just have their defense say, hey, let's see if you can make these throws again. So that leads us to Dillon Gabriel, who I think probably played his best game of the season, or one of his best games, against Ohio State in their first game. He was 23-34, 341 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 32 yards on the ground, then a touchdown. He had a long run of 27 yards. That made up for most of his rushing yards. But this is his second highest quarterback rating, according to ESPN, the entire season. Again, played excellent in game 1, probably his best game of the season. And that's what it took to beat Ohio State, and they still only won by 1. And you could argue that if Howard didn't slide, if he threw it out of bounds or ran out of bounds, that maybe they kicked the field goal and win in game 1. But still, it took Gabriel playing his best football to beat Ohio State. So that's probably what it's going to take again. So what did his best football look like? Well, key number 1, and we're going to look at this on film, is he hit on deep throws. Again, he had 341 yards passing, and 177 of those 341 yards passing came on 4 completions. He was 4 of 4 where the ball was thrown 20 yards or more in there. So my big question mark is, can he do that again? Can he make these tight covered throws? Can he push the ball downfield and complete it again against Ohio State's defense? Because that was huge on why they ended up winning the game. Key number 2, they're a heavy play action team, but they utilize play action even more against Ohio State than usual. So I think they'll need to do that again, or will they need to do that again? Is probably the correct question. 52% of his dropbacks were off or play action. He was 13 of 18 for 207 yards and 72% completion percentage off of play action. Whenever he had a straight drop back, whenever it was non-play action, he was still good. His completion percentage dropped by 10, so it wasn't as accurate. But throughout the season, he was fantastic in play action and dropping straight back. But if you're Ohio State, can you take away the play action, take away the threat of play action beating you, and can Dillon Gabriel be good enough to beat you without the help of play action? If you go off what he did this season, the answer is probably yes. He had 20 touchdowns and 3 interceptions without the use of play action, so still extremely good. But again, this is Ohio State, this is round 2, so can they force you to rely on something else? Key number 3, can you have success regardless if Ohio State dials up the pressure more, if they bring less pressure, or if it's the exact same? Game 1, when Ohio State dropped 7 or 8 into coverage, again, it was the majority of the passing downs. Gabriel was 16-22 for 238 yards passing, 10.8 yards per attempt, 72% completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Against the blitz, he was 7 of 12, 58% completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. So his completion percentage went down by 14-ish around, give or take, right under 14% against the blitz. So does Ohio State see that? Do they blitz more? Do they think there's something there? Again, he still was okay against the blitz. It just wasn't, he just didn't have to be good against the blitz as much as he was good against them dropping 7 or 8 because they didn't blitz as more. And the last key, will he use his legs more? Now, he had 30-something yards on the ground, but the majority of those yards came on one run. So will he use his legs more? Does he need to use his legs more in a must-win game? So we're going to look at the most important key at the very end of the video for Dillon Gabriel. We're going to look at some film or just one throw I think will be the most important thing. If he can make this type of throw, which we'll look at the end, I think Oregon can, in fact, win again. So let's talk about Oregon's defense, then we'll talk about Will Howard, then we'll look at the film. So Oregon's defense, giving up 17.8 points per game. That's, I think, 5th in the Big Ten, right around. That's top few in the Big Ten. They're 5th in yards per game, 3rd in the Big Ten in passing yards per game given up. And they do lead the Big Ten in sacks with 40 sacks, so right ahead of Ohio State. And a similar defense to Ohio State. They're aggressive. They want to bring pressure. They want to blitz. They want to cause chaos in the backfield and confuse the quarterback. But against Ohio State, they only had 1 sack in the first game. They blitzed Ohio State 42% of Will Howard's dropback. So pretty similar to what Ohio State did to Oregon. And so they blitzed just a little bit more, had 1 sack. They bring pressure against the offense. It's part of the game. It's what they rely on. But in a lot of their other Big Ten games, at least 4 or more games, they blitz more than this. So they only had 1 sack. So it's kind of similar to Ohio State, the question of what they're going to do against Oregon. Are they going to dial up more pressure? Are they going to stay the exact same? What will they decide to do? What do they change differently? Again, I imagine they do something differently, or they just say, hey, let's play our game even better and have Will Howard beat us. But again, I would imagine they do something differently, whether they bring more pressure, try to confuse Howard with the back 7. So there are 4 teams against Oregon's defense that scored 20 more points against them. Boise State, they scored 34. Very close game in week 2. It was week 2. Ohio State obviously scored 31. Washington scored 21, but that last touchdown came with like a minute something left in the game in garbage time. And then Penn State scored 37. So there have been some teams, but those are better teams that had success, mainly Penn State and Ohio State having success, and Boise State in the early weeks against Oregon's team. So how does Will Howard have success against Oregon in round 2, or the second time playing Oregon's defense? So I think Howard's coming off his best game or his second best game of the year against Tennessee. A lot of good things, a lot of big takeaways from Will Howard. I know players were schemed open. You were throwing the ball to open receivers, but he still threw some of his best balls of the season against Tennessee. There were some good, tightly covered throws that he was able to complete. He was 4 or 5 on throws throwing 20 yards or more downfield. And like we talked about, if you saw a breakdown, the defense had pretty good coverage on some of these throws. He had success whatever the defense threw at him. He had success on different schemes that Chip Kelly provided, whether it's play action or dropping straight back. And against Oregon, the first game, even with that mental mistake at the end of the game that he had, I still thought it was one of his best games, maybe even his best game. It's the most yards he's thrown in this season so far with 326. In fact, he's only had 2 games where he's thrown 300 yards or more, and that was against Tennessee, coming off the game last week, and against Oregon. So in round 1, he was 28 of 35 for 326 in the air, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks, and 1 touchdown on the ground. So the big question is, can he have a repeat performance of game 1 or how he played against Tennessee? You're starting to kind of see that both quarterbacks had one of their better, if not their best games of the season when they played each other, right? So can he play very similar to game 1 or how he played against Tennessee? And what do those keys look like? Well, the first key, it's going to be a little bit different than Dillon Gabriel. Get the ball out quickly and maneuver in the pocket well to avoid pressure. Take what the defense gives you. I thought this is what he did well in the first game. 58% of his dropbacks, the ball was thrown less than 9 yards in the air. That includes screens, but the ball was coming out quickly, and it led to some big throws. I think that's the most important key for Will Howard. Key number 2, and this builds off key number 1, he was able to hit on some deep balls, just like he did against Tennessee. He was 4 or 5 against Tennessee with the ball was thrown 20 yards or more in the air. In the first game against Oregon, he was 3 of 4 where the ball was thrown 20 yards or more in the air. But can you take what the defense gives you, key number 1, and hit on some deep balls because the defense is creeping in a bit or trying to defend against the short passes? Key number 3, he had some big plays off of play action in game 1. He was 10 of 11 for $147 and 13.4 yards per attempt off of play action. That almost doubled in yards per attempt compared to his straight drop back. So a lot of his big plays, his big throws came off of play action. So will they do that again? Can you rely on play action and get the defense out of position and hit him some big throws? And key number 4, kind of similar to Dillon Gabriel, but it's why Howard had success against Tennessee. Can you have success regardless what Oregon throws at you? Against the blitz, against Tennessee, he was 12 of 15 for, I'm sorry, am I getting this confused? Boom, 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 boom. I'm sorry. In round one against Oregon, he was 12 of 15 against the blitz for $118. Whenever they dropped 7 or 8, whenever they tried to defend, they had more guys defend the pass, he was 15 and 19, excuse me. Am I getting confused? Yeah, I'm sorry. He was 15 and 19 for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. So can he have success regardless what Oregon's defense throws at him? Again, can he repeat this performance, read the defense, and be put in good position? If he can read the defense, like the last key, and have success regardless if they blitz or drop 7 or 8, then I think they can have success again on offense. To be honest, it's very similar if we're looking at both quarterbacks. They had one of their best performances of the season when they played each other in round 1. Can they repeat this performance? And if this is your first time tuning in, there's obviously way more to this game than quarterback play. There's running backs, defense, special teams, but we're just a big quarterback channel. So we're just trying to preview the game from the quarterback perspective. So if you like this type of preview, consider subscribing. We do a lot of college quarterback niche content. That's kind of our main thing, hence the QB Spotlight title. So please consider subscribing if you like this type of content. So before we wrap the video up, let's look at a clip of Dillon Gabriel, then a clip of Will Howard that hopefully does a good job describing or showing what I think the most important key is for each quarterback. And if they can repeat these keys, then I think they can have success and they can end up winning. Like we talked about, a lot more goes into play than quarterback play, but we're just a quarterback junkie channel. So with that said, let's go ahead and check out these 2 clips, one of each quarterback, and then we'll wrap the video up. All right, Ohio State fans, Oregon fans, this is your first time tuning the channel. The film breakdown that we have, majority during the season, comes from broadcast footage, so I have to slow it down. And Oregon fans, I have to slow it down even extra for y'all so I don't get in trouble. But the number 1 type of throw that I think Gabriel has to make in order to beat Ohio State is, can he hit on these deep balls again? Again, he was 4 of 4. We're going to see him throw a deep ball. Again, I have to slow it down. I do apologize. But he was 4 of 4 on balls thrown 20 yards or more downfield. This is off of play action. He's going to throw it at the top of the screen. He's already going right here. It's off coverage. He just makes a really nice throw. Again, these are tough throws to make. We'll go ahead and do it. These are tough throws to make, but he hit on all of them. 177 of his 341 yards in game 1 came on these type of throws. So can he do this and repeat this? Again, that's the biggest question. If he can, I think they win. If he can't, and Ohio State says, go ahead and try to make these throws again, then I think Ohio State's in the position to win. But I know he's got a yard or 2 on the receiver, hits him in stride. Great job by Dillon Gabriel. So this is the most important key to win the game. He can still have a good game, but if he can't hit on these deep balls again, I think it's going to be tough for Oregon to win. So biggest takeaway, biggest key for Dillon Gabriel to have success again, and I'm sorry, I'm going choppy on this, is can he push the ball downfield? Next clip, Will Howard. The most important key for Will Howard, and I can let this go a little quicker. Will Howard, take what the defense gives you. The majority of your dropbacks, 58%, the ball was thrown less than 9 yards. Take what the defense gives you. This is what he does right here. Again, Oregon's blitzing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We talked about they blitz 42% of the time, only 1 sack against him. Ball comes out. He's reading here. Then he has to check down. He takes what the defense gives him, ends up being a big play. Against the blitz, ball comes out. So this is the main key. It's not sexy, but if you take what the defense gives you, you take care of the football, you check it down, that can lead to some bigger throws, and it did lead to bigger throws in game 1. Regardless, whoever wins this game, I do think the quarterback's going to have a similar performance, a repeat performance to win this game. That's why the spread's so close. 2 of the best teams, if not the 2 best teams in the nation playing again. So Oregon fans, Ohio State fans, I want to hear from y'all. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I know this is a little lengthy, but it's just a big quarterback preview. Let me know what you think Howard needs to do. What do you think Gabriel needs to do? What do you think your defenses need to do? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching. If you're a quarterback fan or if you like this type of quarterback preview and content, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel grow. Like the video, share. Keep following us along, and let us know your thoughts, predictions in the comments below. Thanks for following us along. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Peace.